All right, so if you follow the climate debate at all, you know exactly how frustrating it can be. It often feels like we're just stuck, right? Like we're all shouting from opposite sides of this huge divide with no real progress in sight. Okay, let's get into this. Because a really interesting paper suggests there's a way to cut through all that noise and find a pragmatic path forward. You know this quote from Greta Thunberg? It just perfectly captures that feeling of deadlock so many of us have about the endless cycle of climate summits and debates. It hits home because it really does feel like we're hearing the same arguments over and over again, all while the clock is ticking. But why? Why are we so stuck? Well, the whole debate really boils down to two core ideas, two different philosophies. On one side, you've got the view that we just use way too much stuff. This camp, influenced by some older Malthusian theories, argues we absolutely have to reduce our consumption and maybe even population to avoid a total ecological collapse. Then, on the other side, you've got the cornucopian view. These folks are all about human ingenuity. They argue that technological innovation, not cutting back, is the real key to solving our resource problems. So what's it going to be? Do we power down, or do we innovate our way out? To get past this ideological tug of war, the paper we're looking at proposes a tool for some clear-eyed analysis. Instead of just arguing about philosophy, what if we could just do the math? The tool is a metric called the ecological footprint, and it gives us a surprisingly simple way to look at our options. So, what exactly is the ecological footprint? Well, think of it like humanity's annual bill from planet Earth. It's one single number that tries to quantify our total impact, all the resources we use up and all the waste we create. It's a neutral framework that just helps us measure the real consequences of the choices we make. And here it is. This is the core of the whole thing. The ecological footprint, or EF, can be boiled down to this one simple fraction. It's our total population multiplied by how much each of us consumes, all of that divided by our efficiency. Now, what's so powerful about this is that this one little equation, it basically contains the entire climate debate. Let's break it down. The top part of that fraction, the numerator, that's our total demand on the planet. This is the reduced consumption side of the argument. To lower our footprint, they argue that we have to make this number smaller, either by having fewer people or by each person just using less. Simple as that. And the bottom part, the denominator, that represents our solutions. This is the technological innovation argument right here. To lower our footprint, this camp says we need to make this number bigger, a lot bigger. We need to get radically more efficient at turning resources into the things we want, so we can produce more while impacting the planet less. Okay, so we have our equation. Now for the fun part. Let's actually use it. The researchers simulated 4 totally different futures, inspired by UN scenarios, just to see what would happen to our ecological footprint by the year 2100 if we went down each path. Let's see how they stack up. So here are the 4 worlds we could end up in. We've got business as usual, which is basically our current trajectory. Then there's tech world, which bets everything on efficiency. Consumption reduction focuses only on using less. And finally, smart sustainability, which tries to do a little bit of both. You can see each one makes different assumptions about population, consumption, and technology. First up, business as usual. This is the future we get if we really don't make any major changes. Population doubles by 2100, consumption just keeps on climbing, and our technology only gets a tiny bit more efficient. It's basically the path of least resistance. Next, we have the tech world. This is the future that the innovation camp dreams of. We pour tons of money and effort into green tech, and we actually double our efficiency. But we also let our consumption double, basically believing our own cleverness can outrun our appetite. Here, we're focused entirely on that denominator. In sharp contrast, we have the consumption reduction scenario. This is the degrowth future. We successfully manage to curb our consumption habits, but because there's less economic activity overall, there's only a modest investment in new green technologies. In this world, the focus is all on the numerator. And finally, there's smart sustainability. This is the hybrid model. It doesn't pick a side in the debate. Instead, it attacks both parts of the equation at once. We moderately reduce our consumption, and we make really big gains in our technological efficiency. So there you have it. 4 distinct paths, 4 possible futures. The researchers ran the numbers, simulating each scenario all the way out to the year 2100. The big question is, which path actually works? Which one manages to bend the curve of our environmental impact? The results? Well, they are incredibly clear. If we just stick with business as usual, our ecological footprint more than doubles, a 132% increase. I mean, this simulation shows in no uncertain terms that our current path is just fundamentally unsustainable. It leads to a massive, massive escalation of our impact on the planet. Now, this is fascinating. What about those two ideologically pure paths? The simulations show that whether we bet everything on technology or everything on reducing consumption, it's just not enough. Both scenarios slow the bleeding, for sure, but our total footprint still grows by 20%. So picking just one side of the equation, it fails to actually reverse the trend. And here's the payoff. The only scenario that truly succeeds is smart sustainability. By combining mindful consumption with major boosts in efficiency, this is the one and only path that doesn't just halt our growing impact, but dramatically reverses it, slashing our ecological footprint by a whopping 62%. And this chart just lays it all out brilliantly. Just look at the outcomes. Business as usual skyrockets off the chart. The tech world and consumption reduction approaches, they both fail to bend the curve down, still resulting in growth. But that smart sustainability path, well, that creates a radically different future. It's the only one that drives our footprint down, and it does it decisively. So what does all this math and modeling actually tell us? Well, it points to a really powerful conclusion that gets us out of those ideological trenches we started in. So the crucial point is really this. It is not an either-or choice. The data is pretty clear that a policy focused exclusively on reducing consumption or exclusively on improving technology is pretty much destined to fall short. To actually solve the problem, we have to do both. So the paper leaves us with three really clear takeaways. First, policies have to be balanced. We've got to work on the numerator and the denominator at the same time. Second, just cutting consumption isn't enough, because that can actually starve the very innovation we need. And third, the best strategy is a pragmatic, no-regrets approach that combines the best of both worlds. When you look at it, this analysis gives us a pretty clear, data-driven map for a sustainable future. It shows that those polarized camps in the climate debate, they each hold a piece of the puzzle, but neither one holds the whole thing. And, that leaves us with one final critical question to think about. If the math is this clear, what are the real-world barriers that are preventing us from working together?